Welcome to Wisdom Trek with Gramps. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, and we are on day 2725 of our trek. The purpose of Wisdom Trek is to create a legacy of wisdom, to seek out discernment and insights, and to boldly grow where few have chosen to grow before. The title of this Wisdom Trek is Covenant and Correction, the Unfailing Promise Beyond Sin. Today, we continue our deep exploration of the magnificent Psalm 89, focusing on the pivotal verses 30 through 37 in the New Living Translation. This psalm is a grand meditation on the Davidic Covenant, which we covered in detail in our previous trek. We heard God's unbreakable oath to David, promising an eternal dynasty, an unwavering hand of support, and the title of firstborn, the mightiest of all kings on earth. The core message was the perpetuity of the throne, guaranteed by God's eternal, unfailing love. Now, the psalm addresses the inevitable question that hangs over any covenant involving human beings. What happens when David's descendants sin? This section provides the powerful, compassionate, and definitive answer. God assures the Davidic line that while sin will bring discipline and punishment, it will never break the covenant itself. This distinction between temporary discipline and eternal covenant is the central theological assurance of this passage, and is vital for anchoring our hope. Let's open our hearts and minds to this profound divine teaching on the nature of grace, discipline, and eternal commitment. The first section is The Reality of Sin and the Necessity of Discipline, Psalm 89, 30 through 32. But if your descendants forsake my instructions and fail to live by my regulations, if they ignore my decrees and disobey my commands, then I will punish their sin with the rod and their rebellion with whipping. God, who speaks through the prophetic vision in this psalm, moves directly to the problem of human failure. This is a realistic covenant. God knows that David's descendants, like all human rulers, will be prone to failure. But if your descendants forsake my instructions and fail to live by my regulations. The but if introduces the conditional clause, the possibility of covenant violation by the human party. The psalmist emphasizes the deliberate nature of their potential disobedience. They don't just forget. They forsake God's instructions, Torah, the divine teaching or law, and they fail to live by my regulations, mishpatim, the divine judgments or legal decrees. This is a profound failure of both heart and deed. They ignore the wisdom that we seek here on the trek. The condition of sin is compounded. If they ignore my decrees and disobey my commands, hukol, the statutes. This triple emphasis on ignoring God's various forms of written and revealed law highlights the severity of their potential offense. It is a wholesale rejection of God's authority and moral order. And God, the righteous judge, promises a certain and just response. Then I will punish their sin with the rod, and their rebellion with whipping. God guarantees that sin will not go unaddressed. The rod and whipping symbolize discipline, chastisement, and firm correction. This punishment is a necessary consequence, ensuring that the moral order of the covenant is upheld. This distinction is crucial, friends. The ancient Israelites understood that discipline was not synonymous with divorce. A loving father corrects a rebellious son, but he does not disown him. God is confirming here that their disobedience will be met with divine discipline, ensuring that the sin of the king doesn't entirely corrupt the spiritual health of the nation, or lead to the kind of spiritual blindness that plagued the unjust rulers in Psalm 82. The second section is The Unbreakable Oath, Psalm 89, 33 through 37. But I will never stop loving him, nor will I ever be untrue to my promise. No, I will not break my covenant. I will not take back a single word I said. I have sworn an oath to David, and in my holiness I will never lie. His dynasty will go on forever. His throne is as secure as the sun. It will be as lasting as the moon, my faithful witness in the sky. Here is the heart of the covenant and the source of all hope, the powerful contrast introduced by a simple word, but. After affirming that sin will bring discipline, God makes an absolute, unqualified commitment that he will never break his promise. But I will never stop loving him, nor will I ever be untrue to my promise. This declaration is a personal commitment to unfailing love, is less than #0. 5# is greater than ḥesed. God promises he will never take his ḥesed away from David or his descendants. This is the unconditional core of the Davidic Covenant, distinguishing it from the conditional Mosaic Covenant. While the individual king's rule might be interrupted by sin, the dynasty itself will not be terminated. God backs this assurance with an oath of divine integrity. No, I will not break my covenant. I will not take back a single word I said. I have sworn an oath to David, and in my holiness I will never lie. The foundation for the covenant's perpetuity rests entirely on God's perfect character. He invokes his holiness kodesh, his absolute separateness and moral perfection, as the guarantee. God cannot lie. His word is truth. This is the bedrock of Amunah, his faithfulness. This declaration is critical in the context of the divine council worldview that the psalmist, Ethan the Ezrahite, would have understood. In the divine council, oaths and legal contracts are paramount. God is binding himself by the highest possible standard, swearing by his very nature. This assurance is meant to silence any doubt, whether from human hearts or from the celestial beings, the holy ones we discussed earlier, who witness God's governance. The psalm then repeats and confirms the eternal nature of the dynasty, linking the throne's security to the cosmic order that God established. His dynasty will go on forever. His throne is as secure as the sun. It will be as lasting as the moon, my faithful witness in the sky. This is the promise of perpetual existence. The throne is anchored to the cosmos, as enduring as the sun in the day and the moon at night. The moon is called God's faithful witness in the sky, serving as a perpetual, visible sign of God's covenant commitment to David. This section triumphantly declares that the Davidic Covenant is eternal, unconditional in its promise of perpetuity, and guaranteed by the holiness of God himself, towering above the temporary failures and sins of human kings. This third section is Wisdom on the Trek, Discerning Discipline from Divorce. The profound wisdom of Psalm 89, verses 30 through 37, is the critical lesson on discerning discipline from divorce. This passage provides a necessary theology of suffering for the covenant people of God, and it offers 3 vital anchors for our hope. 1. The unconditional nature of the covenant. We often fall into the trap of conditional faith, believing that when we sin or suffer, God must be preparing to abandon us. This psalm dismantles that fear. God explicitly states, I will punish their sin with the rod, but I will never stop loving him. This teaches us that the Davidic covenant, and by extension, the new covenant in Christ, the Son of David, is built on God's character, ḥesed, not our performance. The punishment, the trial, the correction, all of it is an expression of his unfailing love, designed to drive us back to him, not to sever the relationship. 2. The purpose of the rod. Discipline is proof of sonship. When we suffer correction, we should not view it as God's withdrawal, but as God's active engagement. He is correcting the sin that threatens to destroy us, preventing the moral corruption that would lead to total ruin. This assurance is especially vital when we feel weak, vulnerable, or consumed by darkness, as Heman did in Psalm 88. God's anger is measured, and his purpose is restoration, not annihilation. 3. The security of the oath. Our hope rests entirely on God's holiness. The promise is guaranteed not by the strength of David's descendants, but because God swore by his very nature. In my holiness I will never lie. This means that if the Davidic throne fails, God's very being fails, which is impossible. This unshakable assurance is the ultimate comfort, providing a bedrock of certainty when our circumstances are chaotic and our own performance is lacking. The eternal throne of David is secured by the ultimate divine contract. Let us commit today to distinguishing between God's loving discipline and his unfailing covenant. When the rod falls, let us receive the correction with humility, knowing that even the punishment is an active expression of the God who has sworn by his holiness to never break his promise. If you found this podcast insightful, please subscribe and leave us a review. Then encourage your friends and family to join us and come along tomorrow for another day of Wisdom Trek, Creating a Legacy. Thank you so much for allowing me to be your guide, mentor, and most importantly, I am your friend as I serve you through this Wisdom Trek podcast and journal. As we take this trek of life together, let us always live abundantly, love unconditionally, listen intentionally, learn continuously, lend to others generously, lead with integrity, leave a living legacy each day. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, reminding you to keep moving forward, enjoy your journey, and create a great day every day. See you next time for more daily wisdom